Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. I am your host here, Philip, and in today's episode, we're going to be continuing our little movie review into the month of June. And I mean, yes, even though it is almost the end of July, obviously I'm a little behind. So we are going to be wrapping up with the final movie that I saw in June. As you know, we did one on Thunderbolts as well as 28 years later. Today we are doing it on F1. So I am definitely more of an amateur F1 fan for sure. I started getting into it these last couple of months. I mean, I don't watch it as religiously as maybe some other people just because of the time differences and just, me not knowing a lot about the sport and stuff in general. But it definitely has piqued my interest, and I definitely have become a little bit of more, like I said, like an amateur follower. Um, so when this movie was announced and it came out, I was really interested to see it. I heard great things about it. So, me and my mom went and saw it, and I absolutely loved it. We'll get into my scores and my critiques stuff a little bit later in the episode, but overall, it definitely was a pretty good film, and I definitely did enjoy it a lot. So that is what we're going to be covering today in today's episode. Before we get into the episode, you know, everything has been going pretty good so far. Like I said, I would have filmed a little bit earlier in the week, but unfortunately, I had some stuff come up, so I am filming relatively later in the week. So by the time you guys watch this tomorrow, I would have recorded this on Sunday. Not too much time would have passed between me recording this and releasing it. But yeah, I mean, thankfully everything seems to be relatively status quo in my life. Things are pretty good and hopefully looking up for the rest of the summer. Still have some things to look forward to. I mean, next weekend will be Fantastic Four, and I'm super excited and stoked for that movie. And the weekend after that will be my first ever Comic Con, so I'm actually really looking forward to that. It will definitely be a nice way to kind of kick off August, and then we'll see what the rest of the month brings. But so far, thankfully, it's been a pretty good summer. So I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of the year and to see what that brings. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Yeah, I mean, hopefully you guys are doing pretty well. You are enjoying the summer and enjoying nature and the sun when you can. At least I hope you guys are, because unfortunately, with my work schedule, I have not been able to really enjoy the sun and stuff as much as I would like to. So I haven't been able to work on my tan as much, which has been kind of unfortunate. Today I did go outside for about like 2 hours and lay out and did get a little bit of sun, but unfortunately I could not spend a lot of time out there, so I didn't get as much as I would like to. But hopefully, the next couple of days will be relatively nice, and I get another chance to go out there. So hopefully you guys are staying hydrated and you guys are enjoying your summer. And without further ado, let us get into today's episodes. Like I said, we're going to be covering F1. So this movie came out June 27th of 2025. The genre is anywhere from action to drama to sport, obviously. Um, we see that the content rating was PG-13, and it was directed by Joseph Kowinski. And in case you're wondering what else he has directed in the past, this guy is also very well known for movies such as Top Gun Maverick, Oblivion, Only the Brave, Tron Legacy, Spiderhead, and The Dig. So obviously one of his more recent and more famous movies has definitely been Only the Brave as well as Top Gun Maverick. So he does have a little bit of an extensive record, and it seems like his movies more recently have gained a lot more traction than maybe some of his movies prior to that. But we do see a well enough known director, so they definitely put this movie in the right hands. And obviously we'll get into the scores and whatnot in a second, but they definitely do kind of reflect the directing and whatnot. Um, obviously we have a couple of star-studded cast and crew in this film. We're going to start by obviously Sonny Hayes, played by Brad Pitt. We have Damson Idris playing Joshua Pearce. We have Javier Bardem playing Ruben Cervantes. We have Carrie Coden playing Kate McKenna. We have Tobias Menzies playing Peter Banning. And who else? I mean, we got Kim Bodnia playing Kasper Smolinski. And we have Sarah Niles playing Bernadette. So obviously Brad Pitt is the main star of the show, but we also have someone like Javier Bardem, who has been in the Dune movies more recently. He was obviously one of the Fremen. And then obviously Tobias Menzies, from what I am looking at real quick, he does look like he had a role in Game of Thrones. I believe he played a member of House Tully. So that's where I recognize him from. And I think Joshua Pearce has also been in other acting roles. If I remember correctly, he might be in. Uh, yes, he has been in. What am I looking for? The TV show, Snowfall. He is very well known for his role in Snowfall, so he is a very talented actor himself. So relatively star-studded cast, which is great, and definitely helped carry this movie for sure. Now that we got all that out of the way, we are going to dive quickly into the box office report, and then as well as some of the critiques from your favorite websites that we all know and love. So we're going to go into the box office report as of now. So, um, out of curiosity, with a quick Google search, let me see if this movie is still in theaters. It might be playing at some select locations because it was towards the end of June, so it might still be in theaters. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was already forced out because of some other movies that have recently come out. So we're just going to kind of click away. Okay, so it looks like it's still... Is it playing? Trying to look for showtimes? No? Okay, let's get tickets. Sure. I mean, you know, you gotta love how intricate they make it. Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, let's just... I'm just trying to... Okay, so it is playing in theater still, which is great. So obviously, if you have not had a chance to see it, definitely go see it because it is worth the money. I actually saw it twice, so I really did enjoy the film. But it is still playing in theaters, so it does have a chance for the box office to increase. However, I don't really think it's going to increase by that much because it's already been out for probably well over almost a month already. So this movie going in had a budget of about $200 to $300 million. So far, according to a quick search, the box office report for this movie is sitting at about $461 million. So, debating on which number is higher in terms of the budget, we see that this movie has made at least double its budget. So it's made its budget back and then some. I didn't expect this movie to make a whole lot of money. I mean, I think depending on how much more time it has, I could definitely see it getting up to maybe at least like 500 million, so making half a billion, which is not bad. However, because the budget was so extensive and was so big for this movie, obviously the box office report is not really going to reflect too positively because, again, they did have to get some big ticket F1 drivers and actors in this movie, so I'm sure that costed a lot of money. And then obviously the amount of time that they take into the filming and then just the practicality of it, because obviously these are real people racing in real F1 cars. It's definitely going to cost a lot of money. So again, the box office report obviously is overall relatively positive because, again, it made back its budget and then it's made more, so it is trending positively in the right direction. However, just based on how big the budget was to begin with, it might not look that way to some people. But so far, everything is relatively tracking for a pretty good review. So, it's got a good box office report. It's got a star-studded cast. Now we are going to get into everybody's favorite part of the video, and we're going to be discussing some of the scores. So let me go back to... Yes, this is the screen I want to. Okay, so for some reason, I'm only getting a score from 2 websites instead of the usual 3. Obviously, we always look at IMDb, we look at Metacritic, and then we also look at Rotten Tomatoes. For some reason, for this movie, I'm only getting IMDb as well as Rotten Tomatoes. So we'll start with IMDb. IMDb has given it a 7.9 out of 10. So if you really just want to round up, about an 8 out of 10, which is a relatively good score. I mean, this is a good score for a movie like this. Again, if we're looking at it, it's about an 80%. So overall, that's like a B rating. So this movie is definitely good. Rotten Tomatoes, obviously taking a closer look at it, we always look at both scores. Now, I see already that it has been certified fresh by critics, and critic-wise, it's sitting at a 83%, which, again, on par with IMDb, is a relatively good score, right? We're looking at like a B, so that's good. However, when it comes to the popcorn meter, how the audience has rated it, we see that it is verified hot at about 97%, which is absolutely fantastic. That is an A+ rating. That means that the audience definitely enjoyed it a lot more than the critics. Just to kind of further elaborate on that, we're going to look at the critics' consensus real quick. So, driven by Brad Pitt's laid-back magnetism and sporting a souped-up engine courtesy of Joseph Kosinski's kinetic direction, F1 the movie brings vintage cool across the finish line. relatively positive review. Audiences, around are saying that fueled by Brad Pitt's effortless charisma, F1 the movie is a velocious, velociously loud and exceedingly exciting motion picture that deserves to be experienced on the biggest screen possible. So, again, both the critics' consensus as well as the audience, very positive reviews, which is great to see. So far, we see that, relatively box office wise, it is performing fairly well. Obviously, one of the biggest critics that we look at here, Rotten Tomatoes, has praised it both critic wise as well as audience wise. And again, behind the back of a pretty well known director, that brought us like Top Gun Maverick, as well as a star-studded cast by such as Damson, Idris, and then Brad Pitt. Overall, they had all the keys to success with this movie, and obviously it is trending in that direction. However, just like we always say on this podcast, obviously there are pros and cons to every movie, no matter how big of a score it is given. So now we are getting into more of the meat and potatoes, and we're going to be looking at some of the pros and some of the cons that I myself, as well as other people that went to go see this movie, have seen when it comes to F1. So again, we're going to start with the cons because we always love to end on the positive note here on the podcast. So there's a couple of points that people, as well as myself, have seen when looking at the F1 movie. And again, I don't know exactly everything about F1, so some of my opinions and some of my thoughts might be a little simple. So feel free to correct me or just elaborate further in the comments below. But we're going to start off with a predictable plot. So critics note that the story follows familiar sports drama tropes, making character arcs and outcomes easy to anticipate. Now, this, I'm sure, is relatively true. I mean, I do not really watch a lot of sports movies, so I can't really, confirm or deny if this is true or not. But, again, it does seem like it follows somewhat of a predictable plot, an old-timey veteran, coming back, well past his prime to kind of prove something and, so on and so forth. So, I definitely think if I did some digging, there's probably plots of all different types of sports movies that definitely line up with this train of thought. I think there's a couple of football ones off the top of my head that I could think of. So overall, yes, this is obviously a definite critique that I can see the critics making. However, does that ruin the film or all? I don't think so. I mean, yes, even though the plot is predictable, I think still watching it unfold on the big screen is relatively rewarding, and it still makes for a good story, whether or not it's predictable or not. So this one could definitely be taken with a little bit of grain of salt. I mean, of course, if you're looking for a whole new story, obviously you might be a little disappointed, but if you didn't really care whether or not it was predictable or something you've seen before, you're not really going to care too much. Another one that we have here is a shallow character development. So while Joshua evolves, other characters, especially Pitt's Sonny, remain static, limiting emotional engagement. This is very true, but I think that was the whole point. So I think Joshua's character in the film was supposed to be the one that had the more character development and the one that was supposed to evolve more. I think a character like Sonny Hayes and Brad Pitt's character, they were kind of meant to stay stagnant and kind of only develop a little bit. Because I think the overall goal of bringing someone like Sonny into, Apex's team when it comes to Formula One was to not only help them win races, but then also to kind of help mold and mature their other driver, Joshua Pearce, a little bit more. And we see that he accomplishes that at the very end of the film. And obviously, he goes off and he does his own thing because he's just living his own life. So if you were hoping for character development from Brad Pitt's character, I mean, I could obviously see why this is a point of contention, but I think the bigger picture here that we were supposed to take away is that the younger character, Joshua Pearce, was supposed to be the one with more of the character development and the story. And, Sonny Hayes was kind of like a older mentor to kind of like pass along the torch, really. So again, definitely take this one with a grain of salt. I mean, if you're looking specifically for Brad Pitt's character to go through a character arc, you are going to be relatively disappointed. But, if you are looking at the bigger picture and you see where the development went to different characters, this is not really going to bother you at all. So far, these first 2 points, it just depends on the type of moviegoer you are and the type of story that you prefer, whether or not this is going to bother you or not. Third here is heavy product placement. So the film often feels like a glossy ad for Formula One and Apple, with brand logos and tech dominating the screen. This is definitely relatively true because, again, it is a sports movie, so obviously they are going to highlight Formula One. So, I mean, I don't agree necessarily with the ads for Formula One, because that's the whole point of the movie. That's what the whole movie's about. Brands like Apple and some other branded logos that are either represented with the teams, or just represented throughout the movie. Again, I don't really see that much of a big of a deal, because if anything, it kind of helps ground the film and keep it a little bit more realistic. So you're like, oh wow, this could just literally be a whole new F1 team, like in our world. Obviously we see real F1 teams, we see real drivers. So this is meant to be grounded more in reality. So it would make sense how heavy product placement would be pretty relevant in the film, and it probably also helps to pay for the movie as well. Because again, at the end of the day, movies are always a money making scheme, so this is definitely a way for brands to get their name out and obviously make some money off of it. So this one, I think you could just totally throw away. And if it really did bother you that much, then you probably just shouldn't go to any movie, to be honest. Yeah, I could understand the sentiment, but like I said, I so far I think these first 3 points are relatively just kind of throw away and just take with a very heavy grain of salt. Finally, our last 2 points here, we have unrealistic movements. So some racing strategies and dramatic crashes stretch believability, which irk die-hard F1 fans. And then we also have the limited critique of F1 culture. So the movie avoids deeper commentary on the sport's politics, controversies, or ethical dilemmas, opting for a sanitized portrayal. This is probably the biggest point of contention, because obviously not every point in the movie was pretty accurate when it came to F1 racing. And again, a lot of people might find controversy over Brad Pitt's character in general and just the way he was kind of driving, and the philosophy that he had behind driving. A lot of people would just see it was unrealistic, it wasn't believable. And yes, these 2 points are definitely the biggest cons of the movie. Is that, again, even though I am more of an amateur F1 fan, I could tell that a lot of the moves and a lot of the things that he did were not really realistic or barely happen when you watch a traditional F1 race. A lot of the crashing and a lot of the stunts that he pulls, yes, they could happen from time to time, but those are more accidents or just kind of freak things that happen. Him doing it more intentionally and kind of playing more of a mind game. It is a very interesting strategy, because obviously nobody's expecting it, but it's not the most realistic thing that we've seen when it comes to F1 culture and just how races have been done over the years. Which again, it could be a bad thing, it could be a good thing, because obviously someone like Sonny Hayes is going to shake up the F1 culture by doing things that are more unorthodox and not rational. But then again, it also takes away from your normal run-of-the-mill, this is F1 and this is what we're all about. So I could definitely see why this is a very big point of contention. Same thing with the limited critique of F1 culture, is that, again, I am relatively more of an amateur, so I don't really know too much around F1 culture, but I'm sure that there definitely are some points that they could have trampled upon or covered a little bit deeper, and they could have, got you a little bit more invested in just F1 and just the culture and just the ethics and everything. And they touched upon it a little bit, but they definitely could have done a little bit more. So I think these 2 points are definitely the ones to take away from the most. So obviously, if you are a very avid fan of F1, you might be disappointed because, some points are not very realistic and, it might upset you. But I don't think they take away from the movie overall, so I still think you should go and give it a chance, obviously. That basically covers all the cons for the movie. So like I said, the first 3 points I think are relatively throwaway points. These last 2, when it comes to unrealistic movements and then limited critique of F1 culture, are definitely the big ones to take away. And again, if you are a very avid fan of F1, you are definitely going to be able to point out a lot of these discrepancies and inaccurate things right away. But it just is really up to you whether or not it impacts the movie as a whole for you. Excuse me. So now we're going to get into the pros, because we always love to end on the pros. Oh, excuse me. So, first one here is that we have some stunning racing sequences. So the film delivers some of the most immersive and visual thrilling scenes ever captured, thanks to director Joseph Kowinski and cinematographer Claudia Miranda. This is very true. The very final race in Abu Dhabi was probably the most thrilling and my heart was pounding out of my chest. Sequence for me, because it felt like you were literally watching a real life race on the movie screen. And just it's just so action packed. Just the way they were able to get the shots and just the way everything was filmed, it literally had you on the edge of your seat. It was you were just fully immersed in this film, and that's one of the best things that they did about this film. So I definitely agree with this point. Another one is some authentic F1 atmosphere, so real Grand Prix footage, cameos from actual drivers like Verstappen and Leclerc, and technical accuracy, pit stop simulators, team dynamics, etc. lend credibility to the sports portrayal. This is true. I mean, for all their faults, it wasn't entirely accurate, but they definitely got the F1 atmosphere pretty good to a T, right? They showed real footage. They had cameos from actual drivers like Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc. Obviously, technical accuracies like the pit stops, the simulators, the team dynamics. Like, they did cover a lot of the behind the scenes, and they did a really good job of making a very authentic F1 atmosphere. Now, it wasn't exactly perfect, but it was very good, and it did keep you enthralled, and it just was really cool to see, and it was really cool just to watch. Um, Another point that we have here is a strong performance. So Brad Pitt as Sonny Hayes and Damson Idris as Joshua Pearce bring charisma and emotional depth, with Kerry Condon and Javier Bardem adding solid support. So again, obviously, Brad Pitt and Dame Idris are like the main stars of this show. And their dynamic and their chemistry, as well as their relationship from the beginning to the end, is very nice, and it is something that you obviously pay attention to a lot in the film. However, some of the supporting characters, like Javier Bardem and, Kerry Condon, they do add some solid support. They're not as important per se to the story as, these other characters, but they do add just enough support, to kind of keep you entertained and just bring you a little bit more, charisma and emotional depth, and they kind of help bring these characters kind of out of their shells and help them evolve throughout the film. But I think obviously to take away Brad Pitt and Dame Idris, they do a phenomenal job in their roles, and they should be highly commended for it. Hans Zimmer's score is also another one. Hans Zimmer is a very famous composer, and he makes phenomenal music. So if you are a fan of Hans Zimmer, you are going to love the soundtrack and the music for this film. So the music definitely amplifies the tension and excitement, perfectly complementing the high-speed visuals. The soundtrack for this movie is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I went out and I bought myself the F1 vinyl because it has an excellent soundtrack. So if you have not listened to it, I highly recommend you listening to it. And finally, last but not least, we do have the mentorship theme. So this was basically the main point of the story. This was the main theme of the film. So the story explores generational dynamics and personal redemption, echoing classics like Top Gun Maverick and Moneyball. So obviously taking some themes from some of his earlier movies. That mentorship theme is definitely shown in this film, and it is done very well. I mean, again, that could be another classic predictable plot, that people are looking for when it comes to a sports movie. However, I think they do a really good job when it comes to Sonny Hayes and Joshua Pearce, from where they beginning to where they end. And like I said, it's more of Sonny Hayes is kind of passing the torch to Joshua Pearce, and then he just goes off and he does his own thing. So they definitely do a very good job with that theme, and it is a nice story between the two of them. And it takes them a while to kind of get on the same footing and the same agreement. So it's not like it happens overnight. So they definitely really do a good job of stretching it out and showing all the pros and cons, and eventually coming to the epic conclusion at the very end. But that is going to do it for today, guys. So I think some of the pros to take away from this movie is that it's going to have some stunning race sequences for you. Obviously, it's going to give you a little bit of an authentic F1 atmosphere. I think Joshua Pearce and Sonny Hayes are phenomenal as characters. And then obviously the score from Hans Zimmer is phenomenal. And if you love him, then you're going to love the music for this movie. But like I said, that is going to do it when it comes to today's episode. So thank you guys so much for coming out to another wonderful episode of Two Sons Podcast, where we decided to go over F1 the movie. So for the rest of the summer, look forward to episodes such as Jurassic World Rebirth, Superman, and then I will be seeing the Fantastic Four movie. Not this weekend, obviously, but the following weekend. So for the rest of the summer, we will have some pretty big ticket movies to discuss, and then we'll see where the rest of the summer going into the fall takes us. But yeah, if you're wondering where you can find my wonderful podcast and figure out when these episodes drop for you to watch and to listen to, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, all under Two Sons Podcast. That's with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. You can also find me on YouTube at Two Sons Podcast, which is where I post the videos. So obviously I will post, something on social media to tell you guys, oh, hey, the episode's out. You should go listen to it. And then obviously feel free to go to the YouTube and then either put me on in the background, or if you want to watch, go ahead and just watch my face, the whole entire time. But hopefully this podcast you could use to work out, or just put on in the background while you're cleaning, or even just drive to work if you really want to listen to my voice while you're driving to work. But again, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all under Two Sons Podcast. Those with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. So thank you guys so much. Like I said, this episode will come out on July 21st. So be on the lookout for those notification posts. And until I see you guys again, I hope you guys have a great day, great afternoon, great evening. Please be safe. Do not do anything stupid. And I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.